Arr! Welcome, you scurvy dogs, to a special Halloween episode of Ink Drop Ink. Tonight, we be giving you a scary story to chill ya to the bones.
Why are you talking like that?
Be talking like what, lass? Be how all pirates talk.
Only the really cliched ones. Cut it out already. Just introduce the story.
Fine. Okay, in the spirit of Halloween, we have a horror story for you tonight. It's called Frostbite, and it's the tale of a group of friends who get lost in the snowy mountain forest and are forced to try to find civilization, all the while being stalked by a ravenous beast that lives in the woods.
This isn't a werewolf story, is it? Because if that's all, I'm gonna be really disappointed.
No, it's not a werewolf, but it is supernatural in nature. I guess you'll just have to stay tuned and find out. By the way, why didn't you dress up for Halloween?
What do you mean? I'm a ghost.
No, you aren't.
Yes, I am.
Okay then. I guess on that note, we'll go ahead with the story then. This is Frostbite.
I'm still watching you.
Frostbite. The Algonquin Indians tell the tale of a malevolent spirit of the frozen north that can possess a man's heart and drive him to do unspeakable things. Once it has control of the man, this entity compels them towards the murder and consumption of their fellow humans. All other thoughts are lost. They don't love, they don't hate, they don't feel. They only desire to feed on human flesh. After the spirit has twisted the person's mind, it begins to twist their body. By the end, they are unrecognizable as ever once being human. They become insatiable, always hungry, always starving. Once possessed, they can never eat enough to satisfy their hunger. And once their sights are set on a victim, they will never give up hunting their prey until it is caught and consumed. This creature is known to the Indians as the Wendigo. Dark clouds loomed on the horizon as Jason pulled his blue sedan into the driveway of his uncle's log cabin. He put the car in park and shut it off before turning around to address his friends. "Okay, guys, we're here." In the back seat sat his Hispanic girlfriend, Maria, and best friend, Sean. "Yeah, I noticed," Sean retorted as he opened his door. "It's the only house for 100 miles out here." 12 miles, Jason corrected. He stepped out of the car and pressed the button on the keys to unlock the trunk. He pulled out Sean's bag and tossed it to him before grabbing his own red duffel bag and swinging it over his shoulder. Lastly, he took Maria's small suitcase and handed it to her before closing the trunk. They only had one bag apiece, since the plan was to stay up here just for the weekend. "Did your uncle know what time we were going to be here?" Sean asked. "Nope, just had to wing it," Jason replied. Sean spoke up again. "Why didn't you call him and tell him?" "Because he doesn't have a phone," Jason explained. The front door of the cabin slammed shut as Uncle Rob stepped out onto the porch. He wore worn-out blue jeans, a red flannel shirt with a drab green vest, and an orange cap. His face was covered with a thick beard. Strapped over his back was his prized possession, a high-powered elk hunting rifle. Smoke rose from the cigarette he held between his fingers. "Hey, Jason!" he shouted. "How's my favorite nephew? Looks like you found the place okay." "Yeah, we did." Jason reached into his pocket and pulled out his cell phone. "GPS is a wonderful tool. Too bad it can't get reception out here," he said as he replaced it. "Never saw much use for those sorts of things," Uncle Rob said. He flicked the cigarette away and it fizzled in the snow. "I prefer a good old map. Battery never dies on that thing." He looked down at the tires of the car. "Where are your chains? You can't expect to drive up here very well with no chains on that thing. You know the weather guys on the radio said there was a blizzard coming up tonight." "Well, if things work out, we won't be driving any place tonight," Jason replied. Uncle Rob embraced Jason in a powerful bear hug and lifted him off the ground. "It's good to see you again, kid." Jason coughed as he felt his ribs being compressed, his feet dangling 4 inches off the ground. "It's good to see you too, Uncle Rob." Rob set his nephew down and looked over at the other guests. "And who do we have here?" "This is my best friend Sean," Jason said, motioning to him. "Nice to meet you, sir." Sean held out his hand and Uncle Rob took it in a firm handshake. "You got a good grip there, son. I like that," Uncle Rob said. "And my girlfriend, Maria." Jason stepped aside and motioned to her. "Hi," she said with a smile and wave. "Nice to meet you."
I see,"
Uncle Rob said.
"Well, you all must be hungry. Come on inside. I've got some venison stew for us."
He stuffed his hands in his pockets and led them back into the house. Maria's eyebrows raised slightly as she looked at Jason. "That was a little weird." "Yeah, I'll say," Sean agreed. "Don't worry too much about it." He resettled the duffel bag over his back. "Come on, we'll freeze if we stay out here." He climbed up the stairs after his uncle, Sean and Maria following right behind him.
"Come on, Uncle Rob," he thought. "Try not to be so derogatory this time."
Inside, the cabin was sparsely decorated. A bearskin rug lay across the floor, its mouth open in a permanent growl. There was a couch and a few chairs facing the fireplace, which itself was made from stone. The smell of day-old coffee wafted through the halls, along with the scent and sound of bubbling stew. A large black pot set atop a wood-burning stove. Oven mitt in hand, Uncle Rob lifted the lid and stirred the stew with a ladle.
"Your kids got here just at the right time. Looks like it's just about done."
He tilted his head back.
"Take a seat there at the table. I'll divvy it out here in a second."
"Smells good," Sean remarked. He set his bag down by the couch and made his way to the table in the kitchen. "You said it was venison, right?"
"That's right, kid."
With a heave, Uncle Rob lifted the pot from the stove and placed it on the cloth pad which rested in the center of the table.
"Had it simmering most of the day."
Sean pulled out his chair and sat down. "Where'd you buy the venison?" Uncle Rob laughed.
"I didn't buy it, son, unless you count buying the bullet I shot it with."
He stepped back into the kitchen and grabbed bowls and spoons for everyone.
"Killed this thing yesterday so I could make this stew for you."
Sean looked wide-eyed at the black pot now sitting in the middle of the table. He glanced over at Jason as if waiting for some kind of response. Jason gave pause for a moment too, before jokingly stating, "Well, at least it's fresh." Maria elbowed him in the ribs and he winced. "Jason," she muttered under her breath, "you didn't tell him I'm a vegetarian?" "I put it in the letter I sent him. Maybe he just forgot," Jason responded. As his uncle came back into the room, Jason raised his hand up and waved at him. "Hey, Uncle Rob," he said, "I thought I put in the letter that Maria was a vegetarian."
"Oh, did you? I must have forgot of that part."
He set the bowls roughly on the table.
"I guess if she don't want the food I've been preparing all day for her, she can maybe scrounge up something in the pantry. I might have some carrots in there, the ones that ain't in the stew already."
Jason groaned inwardly. Maria was looking up to him with a twinge of anger, and Sean was more than a little confused by the turn of events. They hadn't even been here more than a few minutes and already things were starting to go sour. Still, he tried to keep things together. "No, it's not a problem," he said. "I'll just, I guess, take the venison parts out of hers." "That's nice and all, but I'm still not interested in eating food that's been marinating in animal lard for the past 7 hours," Maria snidely retorted, whispering again. "Come on, just go with it. It's the only idea I could think of right now," Jason said through clenched teeth. The four of them sat down at the table as Uncle Rob filled each bowl with venison stew. As promised, Jason spooned the meat out of Maria's bowl and into his. They ate in silence, Maria occasionally shooting dirty looks over at Jason from across the table. Once they were done, they all moved to the front room, where Uncle Rob started a fire in the stone hearth. He got a 6-pack of beer from an ice cooler in the kitchen and brought it into the living room.
"Anyone thirsty? Or is that against your morals as well, lovely Maria?"
"Oh, come on, now you're trying to start a fight," Jason thought to himself. "Uncle Rob," he said quickly, "you know I don't drink." "I'll take one if you're offering," Sean said, leaning forward with his hand out.
"Sure thing, boy."
Uncle Rob placed the cold can in the younger man's hand before popping the top open on his own. "So I was just thinking," Sean said, "I didn't see any power lines or anything like that coming up to the house on the way here. How do you get your power?"
"I got a generator out back. Don't use it too much, though. I rise and fall with the sun. Maybe keep a fire going for a few hours,"
Uncle Rob said. "And this?" Sean waved his hand over the bearskin rug on the floor. "Did you take that down yourself?"
"You bet your sweet ass I did."
Uncle Rob took a chug of beer.
"I was out in the woods, you see, following some deer tracks I was. Rather suspicious ones, I might admit. I remember from the tracks it looked like it was walking on 2 legs. But I was going along, I see this thing moving out of the corner of my eye." He was standing up now, holding his hunting rifle like he was back in the woods stalking deer. "I see this bear off about 100 yards to my left. Strange it got so close to it, and neither of us noticed the other. Anyway, I see the bear about the same time he sees me. It roars at me and starts charging. Just before it got to me, I lifted up my gun, and kapow!"
He mocked firing the rifle.
"Got him right between the eye. You can even still see the bullet hole in this thing, if you look close enough."
He knelt down to the bear rug and placed his fingers on its face. Uncle Rob continued to talk long after everyone else had lost interest. With each new story he would take another beer and chug it down, getting progressively more drunk and his speech more slurred. Maria could only roll her eyes in annoyance. The more he talked, the less she liked him.
"There's one thing I see on you, girl, that I like."
Uncle Rob drunkenly pointed to the crucifix which hung around Maria's neck.
"You look to be a God-fearing woman. I can appreciate that."
Maria's gaze fell, and she placed the tips of her fingers to the crucifix. "Actually, this was my grandmother's. She gave it to me before she died. I'm in fact an atheist."
"Figures."
Uncle Rob fell back on the couch. Maria fixed her gaze on him. And what is that supposed to mean? Jason tried to intervene.
Come on, let's not start anything.
It didn't help much. Uncle Rob continued with his drunken ramblings.
It means, young lady, that I'm not surprised you'd be a godless, veggie-munching socialist. Tell me, did you jump over the border fence, or were you smuggled in a trunk? How much does your daddy make maintaining yards? $30 an hour? Too good for 'em, I say. Lock 'em all on a bus and ship 'em back to Mexico, the dirty spicks.
Maria was on her feet and had her suitcase in hand in no time. Come on, Jason, we're leaving. The bright beams of a car's headlight cut through the black night like a pair of knives. Snow tumbled gracefully from the dark clouds overhead before they impacted lightly on the windshield. Every few seconds the snowflakes were brushed away by the wipers. From inside the car the three friends sat in silence. Jason drove the blue sedan along the dark mountain road. Maria sat in the passenger seat, arms folded across her chest, her face turned to look out the window. Sean lay across the back seat, all sitting together in silence as they drove down the twisted mountain road. No sound but the howling wind outside and the crunching of snow under the tires. Finally, Sean spoke up. "All right, I'll just be the first to say your uncle is an ass." "An ass?" Maria all but shouted. She spun around in her seat to face Sean in the back. "That's putting it way too mildly. Did you hear what he called me? He said, 'I can't believe you're dating that dirty spick.'" She turned back in a huff and crossed her arms again. "He's a rotten old man." Jason drove in silence. He had hoped his uncle could accept his girlfriend was Mexican, but that was obviously too much to expect from the old man. His fingers clenched around the steering wheel. "Maria, I already apologized. I'm sorry he said that, I really am." "Yeah, why do I feel like you're gonna say 'but'?" Maria scoffed. "Don't try to make excuses for him." "I'm not excusing anything. What he said was jacked up, I totally agree." Jason turned to face her. "But can you just let it go now? We've already left and you never have to see him again, so can we just drop it?" "Look out!" Maria screamed at the top of her lungs. A brown, hairy creature with a large rack of antlers stood in the middle of the road, directly in front of the car. Jason slammed his foot on the brakes and yanked the steering wheel to the left. The back tires locked. They skidded across the snow-covered road. The car spun wildly out of control. Jason tried to regain control. He turned the wheel the other way and let off the brakes. Everything he tried only made things worse. The car ran blindly over the edge of the road and down the hillside. All three passengers were thrown about the cab as the sedan rolled down the mountain. The terrifying ride finally came to an abrupt halt when the car crashed head-on into a large evergreen. The airbags burst from the front dashboard upon impact. The front grille and hood of the car crumbled like tinfoil against the tree. Spiderweb cracks spread across the windshield. Jason pulled back from the airbag and gasped. His heart hammered in his chest. Oh my God. Is everyone okay?" Maria also heaved for air. After a few breaths, she answered, Yeah, I'll be okay." "How about you, Sean? You okay back there?" Jason asked. In the back seat, Sean slowly pushed himself up.
That didn't feel good."
There was a cut on his forehead. Blood seeped out and down his face.
"What the hell was that all about?"
Jason leaned back in his chair. He ran his hand over his face. "There was an animal in the road. Looked like a deer." Sean scoffed at him.
"A deer? We rolled down a mountain and crashed into a tree for a deer? You should have just hit the damn thing."
"I didn't want to mess up the front of my car." Sean thrust his arm to the windshield.
"Any more than hitting a tree did?"
As if on cue, the hood of the car lurched up and steam billowed from the cracked radiator.
"Oh yeah, like I wanted to hit the tree."
Jason rolled his eyes. Maria shook her head. Her hand reached to the crucifix she wore around her neck, her late grandmother's. "I'm not sure that was a deer," she said. Jason and Sean exchanged confused glances. They turned to Maria.
"And what does that mean?"
"That thing," Maria said. "It was standing upright, on just 2 legs. Deers don't do that." Sean let out a half-hearted laugh as he ran his fingers through his hair.
"Well, then maybe it was Bigfoot. I really don't care."
He forced the left back door open, only to get a blast of cold air and snow hitting him in the face. The door was quickly slammed shut. He let out an exasperated groan.
"Well, great. Just fucking great. What do we do now? Stuck in a wrecked car in the middle of fucking nowhere during a blinding snowstorm. Or maybe it's a blinding shitstorm? Fuck!"
Jason placed his hand over his eyes.
"Come on, man. Just chill out." "Chill out? Are you kidding me?"
Sean placed his hand against the window.
"Yeah, I might get so chilled I'll freeze to death out here."
"Calm down," Jason said, more forcefully than before. "We need to figure out a plan. Sean, the back seat folds down and opens to the trunk. I keep a few large blankets in there. Can you get them out for me?" Sean scoffed.
"What do we need blankets for?"
"Well, unless you plan on hiking back to town in the blizzard, we're going to have to sleep in the car." Jason said.
"We'll freeze to death if we try that," Sean spouted. "If you have a better idea, now's the time."
Sean groaned. Just sit here and wait till morning. That sounded like a great idea. Absolutely brilliant thinking right there. But he didn't have any better ideas himself. Slowly and reluctantly, he found the latch on the back seat and folded it down. Inside the trunk, along with their bags and suitcases, were 2 large comforters. "Why do you have these and not something reasonable, like water?" "Those were left in the trunk from a picnic a few months ago," Jason explained. Sean took both of the blankets and handed one of them to his friends. Unfolding the other one over himself, he laid back down across the back seat. He sighed again and closed his eyes. Jason placed his hand gently on Maria's shoulder. "You too, Maria." They leaned their chairs back, pulled the blankets over themselves, and tried to get some sleep. Maria still clutched her necklace. Outside, the wind howled, and snow plummeted from the sky. Standing at the edge of the road, in the very tire tracks the car had left behind, stood the creature that made them swerve. Its enormous set of antlers reached for the sky like disfigured hands. It did indeed stand on 2 legs, with its cloven hooves sunk in the snow. It was slouching over, with its disproportionately long arms almost touching the ground, as it gazed down the mountain towards the car. It bellowed a loud, unearthly, blood-curdling scream, like the sound of a dying man and a shrieking deer. This creature had found its next prey.